All right, here we go. Mircea Eliade, Anti-Modern American, Sacred and the Profane, Chapter 4. This is the grand finale. But we're going to do this in two parts because honestly this chapter is really good. Obviously the first three chapters were building up to this. You know, the chapter on space, architecture, sacred time, all of that. Building up to Chapter 4. Human existence and sanctified life. Essentially this chapter is going to be what is religious life, what is a sanctified life through the phenomenological lens of a religious man. Great chapter. I've learned a lot, and I honestly, like I said, it's the grand finale. Everything's building up to this chapter. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to love this. Alright guys. Other thing is, obviously we're back in the room discussing out. That's Minneapolis for you. It's summer day in February, and then the next day it's back to winter hell. We have now moved from vaping to pouches. So I'm hoping by my birthday, June 1st, to be completely off of nicotine. But for right now, we are pouching. So I know it's not as cool as when I used to walk into frames smoking a cigarette. I was a real cool badass guy and all the ladies loved me. I'm sorry guys. This isn't as cool, but we're gonna pouch it up now, okay? We're gonna kangaroo it up here with the pouch. Alright. Spice cider. Definitely as good as smoking a cigarette for sure, guys. Alright. The ultimate aim of the historian of religion is to understand religious man's behavior and mental universe. But one must be more familiar than with just Christianity, Hinduism, and Buddhism. Obviously, these are the major religions, but we must learn from the minor ones also. Now, to gain a broader religious perspective, it is more useful to become familiar with European folklore. Look at that. That's us. Studying rural societies of Europe provides some understanding of the religious world of Neolithic cultivators. Eliade thinks they better represent archaic states of culture than Greece. Even though Christianized, most incorporated pre-Christian heritage from prehistoric times. It still retains a cosmic structure which is almost all but lost in urban Christianity. Sorry. Sorry, American Protestants. It's over. It's over, guys. Eliade, or Guinan's, who is this? This is Eliade. This isn't Guinan. This is the Nivola. He says it's over. Alright, sorry, urban Protestants. You're going to have to cry about your abortions on stage somewhere else, guys. About how God was holding your hand. I've seen that clip. Alright. To come to know the mental universe of religious man, we must above all take into account the men of primitive societies. When we first place ourselves in the perspective, we of course find the world exists because it was created by God. So, if you're an atheist, you put yourself in religious man's shoes, the first thing you're going to notice is, wow, everything appears to me as a creation from a higher power, right? That's the first thing you're going to notice from your first-person view lens from a religious man. Second, existence wants to say something, okay? Objects in the world are trying to tell us something. And that something is from God. And also, everything in the world means something, okay? This isn't meaningless, it's not cold, it's not empty. And finally, it is not an inert thing without purpose or significance. Everything has a purpose, everything has significance. Okay. Religious man conceives of himself as a microcosm, as part of God's creation. Okay? You're not just something that stands outside of it. You are a body inside time and space that is all created. So you are a part of it. Contrary to popular belief where people think, you know, a religious man might put himself outside of creation. Maybe some religions do, but most do not. That is why humbleness and looking at yourself as part of creation and not better than anything else is such a big part of Christianity. Alright, he finds himself in the same sanctity he sees in the cosmos. So, a religious man should see his body as sanctified through God and as a temple, obviously the cliche. He sees the structure of the cosmos and his actions begin to mirror the divine structure. And as someone in, my early 20s who was an atheist and who struggled with drug addiction, I feel like that's a big part of it, right? You don't see yourself as a part of something bigger or meaningful, and you see yourself and your body and your life as purposeless, and that can lead to destroying your body with drugs to chase a good feeling and not caring about the consequences, because you think everything in the world is insignificant and meaningless, so why wouldn't yourself, your body, your life be the same? Okay, religious man sees the structure of the cosmos. I'm sorry, I missed a sentence. He finds in himself the same sanctity he sees in the cosmos. His life becomes homologized to cosmic life. Okay, that word. He sees the structure of the cosmos and his actions begin to mirror the divine structure. Homologized. Okay, so what is that word? It means moving in tune, essentially. You're moving in tune with the sanctity of life. What I wrote here is structural correspondences. So basically, what he's trying to say, and I really like this, so I'm going to use this actually in my writings as well. I think it's going to be a big part of my writings. What he's saying is, when you change your lens from that of an atheist to that of a religious person, objects, pathways, ways of thinking jump out to you from the world, from the first person perspective. Things jump out as meaningful. And when your actions or your being move in accordance with the action or object pointing out this meaningfulness to you, that is an homology. Okay, a homology, a structural correspondence. You're moving, your movements, your being is moving in correspondence to the structure of the cosmos. Okay, that's a big part of Eliade's work on religious people. This is a beautiful concept to me, especially when I think you added in with Heideggerian ontology, right? And we're going to get more into that, but I think when you have a Heideggerian ontology and you start to think in terms of Heideggerianism and not, the modern scientific or, modern lens, scientific lens, basically, it's going to make a lot more sense. And I'm hoping through this channel I can make that point out to you what I'm trying to say here. Okay, so Eliade says, let us attempt to understand the existential situation of one for whom all these homologies are experiences and not merely ideas. So for religious man, this isn't just an idea like I'm trying to make you understand. Because obviously the point of this channel, like I've said before, but I'll point it out every video for people who this might be their first video, they just clicked on this. I grew up a progressive atheist. I've changed my life a lot through my bachelor's degree, through my reading, through everything, and I like this channel to be a way to help people out of that mindset and help them into a different ideology, which is hopefully more beneficial for themselves and for society. Because when I was 18 and I was a fat drug addict, progressive, I probably could have used some of these videos. Why, religion and life isn't just worthless and stupid and meaningless. Clearly, religious man's life has an additional dimension. It could be termed an open existence. Okay? For it is not confined strictly to man's mode of being, especially modern man. Okay, and I love this idea too. I feel like this is also a Heideggerian idea. Heidegger felt that through modernity, through technology, our openness to being has been shut. We look at everything in quantity and modern lens, and everything in this kind of lens where it's not even just capitalism, but even without a capitalist system, we've now looked at objects in the world as nothing more but how can it be beneficial to not the structure of our religious life, but to modernity, to science, to technology, to everything, to keeping the system going. We used to look at trees and we used to go, I can handcraft this into a beautiful house. Now we look at trees and go, well, how many of these can I cut down to send to a lumber factory, and a bunch of machines will take care of it, and I get, shekels in my bank account. Okay, life has to be bigger than shekels, and we need openness to see that, but we don't have that openness. And Eliade is also saying that religious man has more of an openness to being. I know what you're saying, that might be paradox or an oxymoron, but what he's saying is essentially the scientific modern man is stuck in this way of, like I just explained it, and religious man, his being is more open to the call of God to do things that are bigger than just making money and supporting the system. It's I guess a call to consciousness, a call to conscience. And he's saying religious man has that, but it's not a call to conscience, it's a call to God, obviously. Okay. The experience of religious man is open to the world, and in living, religious man is never alone, for part of the world lives in him. Okay, so obviously, like earlier, your body's part of the cosmos, your body's part of the world lives in you. And this, once again, I feel like Eliade read a lot of Heidegger. I haven't looked up if he did, but when I read this, I think it's pretty obvious. An existence open to the world is not an unconscious existence buried in nature. Openness enables religious man to know himself in knowing the world. And this knowledge is precious because it pertains to his religion and being. So when he learns about the world, he's not just learning scientific facts about the world, he's learning more about the world's being and how to better structure himself towards the being for the good, right? What they, in their religion, whatever religion it may be, deems as good. And we're not going to get into what's good, what's bad, and how these things, there's ethical differences. We're just explaining ontological structure of a sanctified life. All right, the sanctification of life. So, what is the process of how a religious man sanctifies life? For a religious man, all of life can be sanctified. The means of sanctification differ, but the result is life on two planes, the human and the transhuman, aka the planes of the gods. In the past, all of man's organs, psychological experiences, psychological acts, physiological acts had a religious meaning. As religious texts / religious cultural heroes set the standard for behavior. But it goes without saying, these correspondingly profound influences do not exist in the profane world, okay? It's obvious, my opinion about modern American culture. The CIA, Israel pays these people to act a certain way, say certain things, because modern people do not have religion, and we have figured out a way to replace gods with these cultural icons in the profane world. And I'm sorry, but Lil Nas X is not someone who you should be looking up to and taking your behavioral standards from. It was a lot better when Odin and Jesus were your cultural heroes and who you were modeling your behavior after. And once again, this isn't, I'm not the kind of guy, we're not arguing, at least on this video, what's better, Christianity and paganism. It's just arguing these static cultural and religious heroes were better sources of inspiration for your being, for your life, than Lil Nas X or Noam Chomsky, even the intellectual heroes. It doesn't even have to just be the trash fucking, hip hop. Even the fucking rock stars, it doesn't have to just be that trash. It can also be the intellectual trash. All right, Noam Chomsky, who's gonna sit and argue, late stage capitalism is what's destroying America, but we'll ignore, Israel, and we'll ignore his best friend Jeffrey Epstein that he's sitting on planes with, diddling the children with. Okay, we'll ignore that. That's not it. Okay, yeah, I bet. So then when the lefties, they can just, model their behavior off of a man sitting on Jeffrey Epstein's plane diddling children. Nice. Nice. All right. So, sex, eating, work, play has all been desacralized. Not good. Which means all these acts are deprived of their spiritual sense human dimension. So, the sacramentalization of physiological acts have preserved their vitality even in highly evolved religions. So he's saying even in modern day Christianity, which, people like Guinan would argue have lost their esoteric form, he's saying even the exoteric form has retained their vitality of sacralizing, modern day things, everyday things. And, as a server, I work as a server in Minnesota. Other servers laugh at these religious people saying their prayers before eating. But what if saying your prayers before eating is what adds the human dimension into life, the spiritual, the bigger than dimension of life? What if, as I get older, I start to feel like it's true? All right, 170, paragraph 2. Okay. For but one example, we need only think of the prestige that sexual union as ritual acquired in Indian Tantrism. India strikingly illustrates how a physiological act can be transformed into ritual, and how, when the ritualistic period is ended, the same act can be valorized as mystical technique. The husband's exclamation in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, told you, pronunciations, I'm not good at it. I'm never going to be good at it. And it's going to be a running joke. So if you think it's offensive, get over it. It's funny. I am heaven, thou art earth, follows the transfiguration of the wife into Vedic sacrificial altar. But in Tantrism, woman ends by incarnating Prakriti, which equals nature, and the cosmic goddess Shakti. While the male is identified with Shiva, the pure, motionless, serene spirit. Sexual union is above all an integration of these two principles, cosmic nature energy and spirit. As a tantric text expresses it, the true sexual union is a union of the supreme Shakti with the spirit. Other unions represent only carnal relations with women. Ugh. There is no longer any question of a physiological act. There is a mystical rite. The partners are no longer human beings. They are detached and free, like the gods. The tantric texts never tire of emphasizing that a transfiguration of carnal experiences occur by the same acts that cause some men to burn in hell for thousands of years. The yogin gains his eternal salvation. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishads already declared, he who knows this, though he seem to commit, is pure, clean, ageless, immortal. In other words, he who knows has at command an entirely different experience from that of the profane man. This is as much as to say as that every human experience is capable of being transfigured, lived on a different transhuman plane, and the Indian example shows to what degree a mystical refinement, sacramentalization of the organs in a physiological life can be brought. A sacramentalization that is already amply documented on the archaic levels of culture. We should add that the valorization of sexuality as a means of participating in the sacred is not without its dangers. In India itself, Tantrism has provided the occasion for aberrant and infamous ceremonies. In the primitive world, too, ritual sexuality has been accompanied by many orgiastic forms. Nevertheless, the example still retains its suggestive value, for it reveals an experience that is no longer accessible to desacralized society, the experience of a sanctified sexual life. Okay, I need some water, 1 second. I was getting dry mouth there while reading all that. Now we'll talk about it. Alright, so the part I like about that, obviously, there's two parts I like about that. The tantric texts never tire of emphasizing that a transfiguration of carnal experience occurs by the same acts that cause some men to burn in hell for thousands of years. The yogin gains eternal salvation. I like how much this emphasizes that the knowledge one has after going through these initiations and after having these transformative experiences to their consciousness it can show up differently, how these lenses change. And I also like the part, every human experience is capable of being transfigured, okay? And lived on the transhuman plane. Once you go through these transformations, all of existence changes. Everyday experience, every single aspect of everyday experience, okay? Next part, the body, house, cosmos. Since religious man lives in an open cosmos, and it is open to the world, and he is open to the world, A, he is in communication with the gods, and B, he shares in the sanctity of the world. We saw a religious man wishes to dwell at the center. I think that was chapter 1 or 2. We're talking about the Axis Mundi and all that, and how people build their temples in the center of the town. And because the center is where it is possible to communicate with the gods, this body, house, cosmos homology shows how the values of archaic religious feeling and practice can be reinterpreted by later religions and philosophies. All right. Another quote here. Indian religious thought made ample use of this traditional homology, the house, cosmos, human body. And the reason is clear. In the last analysis, the body, like the cosmos, is a situation, a system of conditioning influences that the individual assumes. The spinal column is assimilated to the cosmic pillar, or to Mount Meru. The breaths are identified with the winds, the navel or heart with the center of the world, and so on. But homologies are also established between the human body and the entire ritual, the place of sacrifice, the sacrificial utensils and gestures. They're all assimilated to the various physiological functions and organs. The human body ritually homologized to the cosmos or the Verdic altar, which is also an imago mundi. All of it is assimilated to the house, to a house. A Hatha yogic text refers to the human body as a house with a pillar and 9 doors. So what they're trying to say is within these Indian religious thoughts, the body is so much looked at through, these symbols of like your breath is the wind, your heart is the center of the world, and even the place of sacrifice and all the utensils is looked at through this lens. So, what is they saying? What is the point of this? What is the point? Okay, why? By consciously establishing himself in the paradigmatic situation to which he is, some would say predestined, man cosmicizes himself. This is how man becomes part of the cosmos, okay? To say your breath is like the wind, to say your heart is like the center of the world, all of this. This is how, by saying your body is part of the everyday cosmos and using these symbols, it's a way that pre-modern man made himself like part of the cosmos and not something outside of it. Okay. On the human level, he produces the system of rhythmic and reciprocal conditioning. Reciprocal conditioning, I'm so sorry. Influencing that characterizes and constitutes a world that defines any universe. Okay? So the way he moves in tune with the universe is the way he moves with the world. And this isn't any religion. This isn't just one or the other. Homologies also apply in the reverse. In their turn, the temple or the house are the human body. So now, by moving in rhythm, the body and the temple is now part of you too. Okay, and since the temple is a creation that is made for the image of God and to communicate with the gods, now this tool that communicates with the God is inside of you. So you are in communication with God. Now in Europe, there are beliefs that the soul of the dead departs through the chimney/roof, and especially the part of the roof above the sacred area. So, part of the sacrificial area, or the where they give the whatever. Sorry. In the cases of prolonged death, some Boards are removed from the roof, and it is even broken, because the soul will more easily quit its body if the other image. The soul will more easily quit its body if the other image of body cosmos house is broken above. So if you make the house broken, just like the body is now broken, the soul will move through the house. Okay, just like the soul is leaving the broken body. Sorry, sometimes, reading and doing these videos, I'm still getting used to presenting videos, so sometimes I stumble just out of nervousness in doing these videos. I was a musician for 10 years, and I never was scared being on stage or like performing in front of people, but I think it's because when I was performing in front of people, I was a character, right? I was this musician, this character I played for the band, where this is more, I am just talking in front of a camera, and it's more just me, so it's a little more nerve-wracking. I feel like this is more nerve-wracking, standing in front of a camera and having people pick apart my every word, especially when I'm doing something as serious as philosophy, is more nerve-wracking to me personally than getting on stage and playing this character in a metal band, because it's so chaotic, and these little slip-ups, These little slip-ups in a live performance are usually passed over. People don't even notice them. It's just part of the chaotic nature. In the studio, you can edit things and change things. And these, until I get a video editor and a better computer, I'm not editing any of these. So I'm just coming in here and I'm trying not to slip up, and I'm trying to make everything perfect, and that's where the nervousness comes up from. Because I just upload these right after I shoot them. Anyway, sorry about that. In the cases of a prolonged death, some boards are removed, blah, 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 blah. We did this. This experience is barred off from non-religious man because, 1, death is desacralized, and 2, he no longer lives in a cosmos in the proper sense and is no longer aware that having a body / taking up space in a house are equivalent to assuming an existential situation in the cosmos. Like I've said, religious men are barred off because they feel like their consciousness is just an accident. It was just an accidental process, and now they're just a consciousness in a brain. Which, they do understand that they're part of the universe, but not in the same way that, it's kind of like this famous, I'm going to kind of go off here, Norm Macdonald and Richard Dawkins were talking once, and Richard Dawkins said, well, the universe is uncaring. And Norm said, how could that be true if we're part of the universe and we're caring? And the point I'm getting is, that's the point, is the atheists don't see themselves as part of the universe. It's the same way a religious man does, right? It didn't even cross Dawkins' mind that we're part of the universe and we care. So that kind of just perfectly illustrates the point. Now, Buddhist texts constantly use the roof / dome / flight / breaking the roof as a metaphor for transcendence. A break in ontological levels and a passage from one mode of being to another, more precisely a passage from conditioned existence to an unconditioned made of being, that is, to perfect freedom. To an unconditioned mode of being. I'm sorry, not made of being. Let me read that one more time. So, this is a metaphor for a break in ontological levels and passage from one mode of being to another, more precisely a passage from a conditioned existence to an unconditioned mode of being, that is, to perfect freedom. So, especially in today's world, I would think in the past it was more like, it was like, it's funny to think about the difference of what a religious initiation does, because in the past it was like you more took yourself from this animalistic, immoral person who was transformed into this moral, transcendent being. Now it's kind of like you've gone through societal, especially in America, initiations, but what that initiation was is to turn you into a sheep, a clone, an unthinking pussy, especially if you're a man. If you're a woman, you go through this initiation to be turned into a hating white man, communist piece of shit. But for men, we're no longer doing from nothingness to religion. Now it's from the pussy, progressive, liberal initiation, religion, basically, and set of morals into another one. So, In Buddhism, when Buddha proclaimed he broke the cosmic egg / shell of ignorance and has obtained the blessed universal dignity of Buddha, this is what he was talking about, right? He broke through the ceiling. He broke through the shell of ignorance. He broke through the cosmic egg. I do that with my girlfriend. I break through her cosmic egg. Okay, just as modern man's habits have lost cosmological value, so too his body is without spiritual and religious significance. For modern man, the cosmos has become opaque, inert, mute, and holds no message to be deciphered. Sad. I added that. The feeling of sanctity of nature survives today in European rural populations. This is why I want to move to the woods, maintain these rural, sanctity of nature feelings, ideologies. For it is among them that a Christianity lived as a cosmic liturgy and where it still exists today. Like he said earlier, Europeans kept a more paganized form of Christianity, so that's where the more loving of nature and sanctity of nature comes from, he's saying. Alright. As for the Christianity of the industrial societies, and especially the Christianity of intellectuals, it has long since lost the cosmic values that it still possessed in the Middle Ages. We must add that this does not necessarily imply that urban Christianity is deteriorated or inferior, but only that the religious sense of urban populations is gravely impoverished. The cosmic liturgy, the mystery of nature's participation in the Christological drama have become inaccessible to Christians living in a modern city. Their religious experience is no longer open to the cosmos. In the last analysis, it is strictly private experience. Salvation is a problem that concerns man and his God. At most, man recognizes that he is responsible not only to God, but also to history. But in these man-God history relationships, there is no place for the cosmos. From this, it would appear that even for a genuine Christian, the world is no longer felt as the work of God. That's why a lot of American Christians can become these uber capitalists where they destroy nature. I also like where he points out right here, in America, salvation has become a problem that concerns just man and his God, this subjective, individualistic thing, because it really has. And I like that he is implying right here that when you become religious, in the right sense, you realize that you become responsible to history as well. You realize that you are part of the history of life playing out and you can make a difference. That's why they push atheism so much, to make you feel like you can't make a difference and you're not a part of history, you're worthless. Alright, last chapter. Subchapter, and then this will be halfway through the chapter and we'll come back. Passing through the narrow gate, the house, which is the Imago Mundi, remember the sacred building representing in the center of the cosmos, and the human body, so the Imago Mundi and the human body, which is symbolized by the house, plays a considerable role in rituals and mythology. Okay? All forms of cosmos, universe, temple, house, body, have an opening above, which makes possible the passage from one mode of being to another possible, mode of being to another possible, one existential situation to another. I see what I was trying to write there. Okay, so the passage is what makes possible, the opening above is what makes possible the passage from one mode of being to another possible, and one existential situation to another possible. Passage is predestined for every cosmic existence. It has to be, because man passes from pre-life to life and finally to death. So every man goes through these ontological shifts. Even if it's not an ontological shift in your consciousness, you're going to go just from having consciousness to not having it, right? Now this type of passage is part of the larger and more complex system we have discussed. The paradigmatic passage from virtual to formal, which is the passage from chaotic, latent, and non-manifested reality to ordered, manifested, and realized reality. Okay? Like God created and made the universe from unrealized chaos, religious man, through initiations and rites, transitions himself from formless to formed spiritually. So spiritually, He's formless, and these rites and passages from religion give him a form, right? They give him morals, they give him ethic, they give him meaning, they give him a pathway to show you what's important in existence. And this is what young men don't have, and this is why they push atheism so much. And they push all your teachers being women. They push, women can't handle these young men, so instead of having the capability to push them through these initiations into manliness, into manhood, they just drug them with Adderall. I read something the other day that said 28%, 27%, I can't remember, 26% of young men in America are on Adderall. Okay? This is bad. This is because women can't handle these young boys and they just fucking drug them. It's atrocious. Now this is where the term born again is from. Obviously, religious man is born a second time. Human existence attains completion through a series of passions, rites, and successive initiations. So Eliade's obviously making, implied with that and implicit in that is making the argument human existence isn't even complete until you go through these initiations, right? Which brings us to a bridge/narrow gate being used as a symbol for passage in many religions / mystic stories. All right, I'm going to read these last two paragraphs and then we'll get out of here. Try not to miss me too much. All right, the first part. I'm going to grab some more water first. Hold on. I feel like these pouches dehydrate you a little bit, but not as much as the vape. Not as much as the vape. It's Lent, so I gave up the vape. I know it's not quitting nicotine, but I gotta let my lungs heal a little bit. Alright. The vision of St. Paul presents a bridge, narrow as a hair, connecting our world with paradise. The same image is found in the Arabic writers and mystics. The bridge is narrower than a hair, and links the earth to the astral spheres and paradise. Just as in Christian traditions, sinners cannot cross it and are cast down into hell. Medieval legends tell of a bridge underwater, and of the sword bridge which the hero, Lancelot, has to cross barefoot and with bare hands. It is sharper than a scythe, and is crossed in pain and agony. Now in Finnish tradition, a bridge covered with needles, nails, and razor blades crosses hell, the dead, as well as shamans in ecstasy. And they use it in their journeys to the other world. And these similar descriptions are found practically all over the world. I love that he did the European examples though. But it is important to note that the same imagery was still used when it became a question of expressing the difficulty of metaphysical knowledge, and in Christianity of faith, a sharpened edge of a razor. Hard to traverse, difficult path is this, poets declare. That's from Katha Upanishad, and from Hume's The 13 Principle, Upanishads. Alright. Straight is the gate and narrow is the way, which leadeth unto life, and a few there be that find it. Matthew 7, verse 14. Alright, now, these few examples of the initiatory, funerary, and metaphysical symbolism of the bridge and the gate have shown in what way ordinary life and the little world that it implies, the house with its utensils, the daily routine with its acts and gestures, and so on, can be valorized on the religious and metaphysical plane. It is his familiar everyday life that is transfigured in the experience of religious man. He finds a cipher everywhere, which means, a mystery to decipher to get the meaning from. And even the most habitual gesture can signify a spiritual act. The road and walking can be transfigured into religious values, for every road can symbolize the road of life, and any walk a pilgrimage. A peregrination to the center of the world. Peregrination. If possessing a house implies having assumed a stable situation in the world, those who have renounced their houses, the pilgrims and ascetics, proclaim by their walking, by their constant movement, their desire to leave the world, their refusal for any worldly situation. The house is a nest, and as the Pankavimisha Brahma says, The nest implies flocks, obviously. It implies children, and it implies a home. In a world, it symbolizes the worlds of the families, of society, of getting a living. Those who have chosen the quest, the road that leads to the center, must abandon any kind of family and social situation, any nest, and devote themselves wholly to walking towards the supreme truth, which in highly evolved religions is synonymous with the hidden God, the Deus Abscontidus. Deus Abscontidus. I don't speak Latin either. Alright, guys, sorry for my horrible pronunciation, my messing up of words today. I'm getting better at this. I hope you guys follow the journey. I'd love to have you on the path of learning more about European mythology and Heidegger and the traditionalists and building this rehab. You guys are the best. I appreciate all the support. And always remember, stay sober, find God, and always sign a prenup. Peace, guys.